Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everyone. I would like to thank all the conference organizers and the speakers. Previous to my talk, I learned a lot about Morocco's ambitions and goals about diversifying its energy portfolio, using more and more renewable energies. And this is exactly what Qatar is also trying to do, to diversify its economy based on knowledge economy in a sustainable manner. And as an important component and driver of the sustainable development, we are at the Hamad bin Khalifa University to grow the next generation of human capital who can undertake challenges and initiatives in sustainable energy and renewables, etc. And as Ahmed mentioned, Hamad bin Khalifa University is an initiative of Qatar Foundation, which has many other initiatives, including a solar tech company, not only installing PVs, etc. in Qatar, but also making them in Qatar. So I think Qatar and Morocco has very common goals and ways of achieving it. Today, thank you. Thank you so much. I am going to talk a different aspect of sustainability, sustainable development. My talk will not be very much into the technical and scientific aspects of sustainability or renewables, but it is going to be focusing on its social aspects, which is an interest that I developed during the past about 10 years, and I would like to share what I know about it today with you. So here's a brief outline of my talk. I will briefly talk about sustainability, sustainable development, efficiency, and then move on to my case study, hoping that it will give us a little bit better understanding of what else we can do to become more sustainable in our daily lives. I think pretty much everybody knows about what sustainability is and sustainable development is. It is basically meeting the needs of the present, today, without compromising the ability of our children to achieve their needs in the future. And as you may remember, in September of this year, there was a big gathering, a United Nations meeting in New York. All the world leaders, they met to discuss and renew their commitments about sustainable development goals. And this month, I think the meeting is still going on. They are meeting as a follow-up in Paris to discuss the COP, climate policies, along with the sustainable development goals. The main purpose of these goals is basically to bring all countries, all nations in the same page so that they can work together to achieve a better life for our future generations. Because one nation, one country may have the best renewable technologies, solar technology installations, etc. But at the end of the day, if our next door neighbor is not doing it and still emitting all the carbon dioxide, it is not helping all of us. So we should work together to achieve these goals as the humanity. Today, the problems that we have, economic problems, as well as climate change problems, as well as the inequity problems, they all go back to the problems created by us again. Our lives are unsustainable, which not only hurts us, but we predict that they are going to hurt our children even worse in the future. So sustainability and sustainable development is about protection and development of environment, economy, as well as the social equity. So we have to do all of them at the same time. So as was mentioned during the opening speeches, installation of solar power is not only helping to achieve cleaner and greener energy, but also it should help the country to develop its economy and diversify it, and then open up new job opportunities for a larger population. So it must be seen as an opportunity for a larger population. In a summary, these are the existing problems that we can identify around the sustainability or sustainable development. It has mainly three important legs that we can summarize: environment, climate change, depletion of the natural resources, pollution and waste, etc. Economy, inequity in the economy, social tensions, and slower growth, etc. But also in the society, impacting our health. It's very serious. And impacting the inequity and access to the education in different parts of the world, or even in different parts of a country. Okay? But these problems are not disconnected from each other. They are very much related to each other. They are interdependent. So the next generation of scientists, they must have this kind of interdisciplinary understanding and preparation to tackle these multidisciplinary, intertwined challenges, who can then address and take the challenges, let's say, in socioeconomics or environmental economics, or maybe socio-environmental issues to achieve sustainable development. The tools that we have to address these sustainable development issues are, again, we have the technology, we have the science, we can use it. For example, as it is going to be discussed a lot in this conference, we can develop new ways of making photovoltaic technology cheaper, better, more efficient by developing different materials. This is one way of doing it. We can also work on the social aspects of it and use the social sciences together with the technology and address the, for example, economic inequity issues, or we can try to address the social behavior issues which will make and transform our societies to become more efficient. But in order to trigger these two, we need to definitely have to work on policies, work with the government, work in terms of civil organizations, NGOs, and foundations, and then develop innovative and progressive policies which will encourage and ensure technological and social developments to help us achieve the sustainable development. Of course, I should definitely highlight that at the core of all these tools that we have lies the education, starting from the kindergarten all the way to the PhD programs. Again, that's what we are trying to do at the universities. Let me then a little bit talk about social sustainability, which has been a forgotten component of sustainable development and the sustainability issues for a long time. But it is an emerging concept, and more people are trying to work on it and then try to use it to bring about some solutions in addition to the technological solutions. When we look at the development and the progress of science and humanity in understanding and grasping the problems that we are facing with climate change, inequity, and unsustainable lives, etc., we see that in like 1980s and 1990s, environment and environmental concerns was the biggest issues. If you go back and read the newspapers or the technical articles written in 80s and 90s, we see a lot of people working on and worrying about environmental issues, solid waste, air pollution, etc. In 2000s, then it was realized that, in fact, environmental development and economic development, they should go hand in hand, because if you don't couple them, you can, in fact, don't achieve the environmental development. You have to always couple it with the economic development. And in 2000s, 2010s, nowadays, we realized finally that, in fact, both environmental development, social development, and economical development, they should be balanced. So we finally learned how to balance our development goals, that namely we call them sustainable development. So social sustainability is an emerging concept, but we still lack most of the necessary indicators or measurement ways or scientific tools to understand and use them to help us with the sustainable development. Briefly, social sustainability is dependent on, or it means, social capital. And social capital, in a nutshell, is based on the trust. A trust in the society, trust between individuals, trust within smaller groups, and finally trust among the nations. Okay? Trust facilitates cooperation between individuals, between institutes, and between governments and nations. It lowers the cost of living and working together, which is called social cost. Okay? Just to give an example, if the trust levels are high in a society, you could just take the word of your friend if you want to, let's say, borrow some money from him or her. But if this trust level is low between these two individuals or in this society, a word is not enough for you to make sure that you get your money back. So what you do, you make some agreements, or maybe you go to a court, right? All these processes, these transactions, are at the end is a social cost on the society as a whole. Okay? Social sustainability, then, it requires, and it is built on a strong civil society. Education, access to health, safety, and security in the society, they are the main ingredients of the social sustainability, and they make the social sustainability or the social capital. And these are also the only mechanisms that we can build up the social sustainability. Then, little bit talking about the efficiency and social efficiency. Social efficiency, according to different definitions, I took this one, is the optimal distribution of resources in a society, taking into account all external costs and benefits, and then comparing them with the internal costs and benefits. Okay? So the balance of these external costs and internal costs is the point where it is impossible to make anyone better off without making others worse off. So just to illustrate that, we all like to drive cars, right? when we want to move from one location to another, we want to use our cars, if possible, instead of the public transportation, because it is more convenient, it is more prestigious, etc. But driving a car, if we drive a car, and if we don't factor our contribution to the traffic, to the congestion, then it means that we are not considering the external costs to the others. So driving a car is our internal benefit. But for our internal benefit, if we don't consider the external costs, then we are basically not contributing positively to the social efficiency, but rather giving a negative impact onto it. In order to understand and utilize the social efficiency, we need to have the knowledge of the local culture. So a social capital or trust and efficiency may be different for Morocco, for example, than in a Western country, because they are deeply rooted in the culture, in the society, in the traditions, etc. We have to start understanding with it, but in order to make better use of it, we need to use the leadership, governance, and policies to direct them for the larger and greater benefit of the country. Efficiency overall in them is an important ingredient of all elements of the sustainable development. Whether we are talking about economic development, which requires like a good industry developed in that country, or whether we are talking about mobility, which is again an important ingredient of the economic development. In all these elements, we have the efficiency need and requirement. Just to give you an example, energy efficiency or inefficiency, this is for the United States, and it is, I think, for 2005. We have different sources of energy. And energy converted into electricity from these sources, at the end, they are used for some useful applications. But notice that unused or wasted amount of energy from all these resources is much more than the useful energy, even in the most developed country or technology in the world. Okay? So let me a little bit more focus on energy efficiency, because this is where I am going to take it to my case study at the end. I agree with all the speakers that we need renewable energies. We need a diversified renewable energy policies and portfolios, starting with PV, solar, and wind. But energy efficiency is the most important renewable, domestic, the most cleanest, and the most inexpensive source of energy. If we can achieve it, it is very inexpensive and it's the cleanest one. This is taken from the United States 2025 Energy Vision. Basically, efficiency measures will meet at least 50% of the demand increase in the electricity consumption without requiring any new installations, fossil-based power installations. That's their goal, and they have been doing it for about 40 years, especially starting 1970s. EU, for example, targets 20% efficiency by 2020, in addition to 20% renewables in their portfolios. So this is a cost comparison of different energy and electricity by different sources. Okay? As you can see, energy efficiency's cost is the lowest per kilowatt hour. None of them, even the nuclear, can beat it. Okay? So we really need to make use of the energy efficiency in different ways. Not only in the buildings, for example, by reducing our electricity consumption or increasing the efficiency in the power plants, but also, as I will come to you, in the mobility and the transportation. So for many of the developing countries, there exists minimum 10 to 40% efficiency potential by simply installation in our buildings, our homes, our offices, etc., by replacement of electric motors, which is the largest energy consumption point in any plants, manufacturing environments, etc. Renewable of other assets which uses energy like heaters, boilers, chillers, and lights. And renewable of vehicles with greener and cleaner technologies. Vehicles with less weight, low mass, and vehicles with cleaner power propulsion technologies. And of course, by social behavioral change. So these are taken from the Rio Principles, Agenda 21, just to highlight the importance of the sustainability and the role of transportation in the sustainability. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but when we come to the transportation, usually transportation, given regardless of any country or region, it's about taking 20-25% of the total energy consumption in a country. In some regions, this may increase up to 30. In some countries, it may go down to 20%, but it is a significant portion or factor in the energy consumption in our economies. So transportation, as we know, it increases our energy consumption, okay? It creates pollution, congestion, noise, which are all affecting our public health. And there are mainly 4 key factors that we can achieve sustainable transportation. By fuel efficiency, by using low mass and better power propulsion technologies, or by using clean fuels like hydrogen, for example, or improved diesel or batteries in the cars. Another way of achieving sustainable transportation is improving our transportation system, like better infrastructure, signalization, monitoring, etc. And lastly, but not least importantly, travel activity management, which is what I am going to a little bit focus on later. And this is a graph showing the targets of the EU to achieve carbon dioxide emissions in transportation. And all these big circles illustrate where different companies, car companies are today in terms of how many grams of carbon dioxide they emit. Okay? So this is the target, and as you can see, there are significant differences between them. And especially notice this one, Volkswagen. They reported that they need to have 29 grams more to achieve the EU targets. And as you all know, they were lying. Probably they need even double or triple that. Okay. Anyway, let me go into my case study. Urbanization is a mega trend in the world. More and more people are moving into cities to benefit from the jobs, education, health, etc. Today, in the world, there are 500 cities with populations over 1 million. And there are mega cities, like 23 of them, with populations more than 10 million. And 2011 was the first time that the urban population overpass the rural population in the world history. So in the future, majority of the population in the world will be in the cities. But with the cities, as you know, even though we get some benefits such as access to education, access to healthcare, etc., living together is difficult. We need mobility and transportation. And we start living under heavy air pollution, congestion, and noise, etc. So there are some negative side effects. In order to alleviate the negative effects of urbanization and achieve sustainable solutions for urban transportation, again, there are three main solutions. Supply management, such as making new roads, etc., requiring heavy investment, or land use management, allocating land between individuals, between roads, between public places, etc., which is quite a difficult issue almost everywhere in the world. Okay? And then we have the demand management solutions, which is again requires a social change. Of course, we need to start with education by educating our children to respect the common public uses, roads, and respect the rights of the other people when they are walking or driving, etc., from young ages. Among different social sustainability solutions for mobility, travel demand management stand out as an important and proven method. It was implemented in different countries such as Sweden, Australia, and in some portions of UK. And there are different ways of making it. For example, we can do workplace travel plans for schools, etc. It goes all the way to online shopping instead of going out for shopping to the markets or the shopping centers. Okay. I think everybody knows about Istanbul. How many minutes I have? 10? Okay, good. Istanbul, is the largest city in Turkey, and it is one of the largest cities in the world. It has a population of around 15 million, official numbers. Unofficial numbers are known to be much higher, around 20 million. And it has some unique features which makes this city very attractive, very beautiful, but at the same time very difficult to live in because there is a strait, a Bosphorus, separating two sides of the city. And there are limited numbers of bridges, currently 2. A third one is being built. And also, it is the social, cultural, economic, and industrial center of Turkey. So Istanbul itself has 20% of the Turkish population. It generates about 30% of the GDP. And it generates about 40% of the total industrial output. And then like 50% of the exports coming from there. And every year, like 12 million visitors come to Istanbul. Okay? So it is not only like an industrial center, but it's a very touristic center. Okay? So it is important. And I said its population is increasing significantly during the past like 50 years, reaching to 17 million. And along with the increase in the population, the number of vehicles increasing even more, even faster than the population. Okay? So all these things bring a very heavy pressure on the mobility in Istanbul. For example, Population density in Istanbul is 20 people per kilometer square, where it is 24 in Shanghai, which is the next worse or worse than Istanbul. Population increases is about like 300%, where in Shanghai it was 200%. The total network is very little. Total metro network is also much less than compared to Shanghai, for example. And the congestion index, which is what I want to highlight here, is 62%. It means that if you spend 1 hour in the traffic to go from point A to point B, you cannot move in about 40 minutes of this 1 hour. You just stall there, waiting for the traffic to move. Only in 20 minutes you can move. It's a huge inefficiency, right? So because of this, there are different ways of like measuring the life quality in different cities. In Istanbul, it is 117, just the second worst in the overall world, a little bit better than the Mexico City. Yes, it is a beautiful city, it is very historic, etc. But for people living there, because of transportation, because of traffic, the life quality is very low. Okay? So as I said, these are the main roads and ways that you can move around in Istanbul. We have these 2 bridges. Another bridge is being built. But all these bridges are, in fact, they are the bottlenecks of the traffic. So this is like a typical picture of the road network in Istanbul. Almost at any given time, given day, in the week or in the season, as you see, they are all red. Red means there is congestion. So you can go and look at this from the website of the municipality of Istanbul. They publish this every 2 minutes, they are renewed. It's always red. People cannot move, there is traffic congestion, almost 24 hours, 7 days, and 12 months. So life is miserable. So when we make some surveys among the people, majority of the people said that traffic congestion is 30%. That's one of the biggest problems. Okay. In another study conducted in 2009, people said that 55% of them said that traffic is the most important problem, and that's what concerns them. Okay. So these are some of the public transportation modes in Istanbul. As you see, majority of the people, they use the road transportation because the rail transportation is not that developed. And in a very strange way, although they have access to the sea lines, it is not used as it is supposed to be. And so majority of the people, again, uses buses in public transportation or minibuses and shuttles. Okay. And there are some plans to improve the infrastructure, to expand the road network, to expand the railroad network. These are the plans. For example, in 2004, it was 45 kilometers. They want to achieve about like 420 kilometers in 2023. But still, these infrastructures are not enough. And usually what happens when you improve the roads is you attract more people to move in, and then you lose the advantage of making newer roads. So it becomes even worse. So in our study, we focused on one portion of the city, which is called Ouarzazate, in the Anatolian side. Okay. This is the road network there. It is the main entrance to one of the bridges. Okay. We selected this region because it is quite representative of the larger Istanbul. It has 4 universities, 2 hospitals. There are big and small businesses. There is a major shopping mall, and then it has a connection to the bridge. So it has both the main arteries and the small roads within the network. So it is a quite representative section of the city. And also, this is where we lived. When I was in Istanbul, our university was one of in this region. So what we did was, basically in this road network, we made measurements at different critical intersections. We counted the number of cars passing at different times of the day in different days. Okay? And then we put this road network into a simulation system, and then we simulated it. First, we validated that our simulation works with what we measured. And in the second stage of the study, we made a survey with the people living or working or traveling in this region. We asked them questions, about 45 questions, trying to learn their perception and their level of acceptance to different travel demand management methods. So about like 152 participants coming to this region from different parts of Istanbul. And then this shows their age groups and then education levels, etc. And then these are the distribution of why they travel to this section. Some of them are working, come to work. Some are coming to that region to go to school. Some people come to that region for other purposes like shopping, etc. Okay? And then by talking to them and by getting their responses about these travel demand management issues, I have 1 minute, I have to cut it short. We learned that about 70% of them are willing to take some of the workplace travel plans, which was a good news for us. So among them, the worst case was 43% effect, potential effect, and then in best case, we would achieve 75% effect on improving the congestion. So this shows the congestion levels today, and then it is also reported by TomTom, so it is a very good agreement. So our simulation works, and it is validated. And these are the scenarios that basically tells us what this kind of travel demand managements can do and help us. If we don't do anything, as usual scenario, in 2023, congestion levels will be 159, increasing from 131, a huge increase. But if we implement the TDM, travel demand management, in the best case, we can basically little bit reduce the congestion level even from today. So from here, we can reduce it from 159 down to 127 only by travel demand management applications. No roads, no rails, no nothing, just working with the people, trying to change their habits so that we can reduce the congestion. So this is my last slide. I think I am doing well. So travel demand management policies or social behavior or social efficiency, it has a huge potential. This is what we are trying to say here. It has a huge potential. It can be done at almost no cost. It doesn't require any investment, any installation, or etc. In fact, it contributes to the society in many other ways. It increases the social capital, the trust level. But in order to implement them and make use of them, we need to develop policies and work with the government, work with different agencies to identify what can be done specifically and how it can be done. With that, thank you so much. I know I took a little bit longer, but we are still on the time.
Thank you, Muammer.